Hey everybody, welcome back to Low Friction Friday. Hope you've had a great week. And yeah, today just going to be a whole bunch of fun updates on a whole bunch of different fun things. Alrighty, first one. Sorry, there might be a little bit of background noise today. I've got 3 test machines going at the moment and ultrasonic, so yeah, it's just a bit of background noise in the workshop. Alrighty, I've got some leave starting next Friday in line with school holidays. So I've got a bunch of stuff on. I will try to get to a video next Friday and then likely not whilst I'm on holidays, and then a little bit of time to catch up once I'm back. So yeah, video output might be a little bit spotty for the next, say, month, but I will, see what we get to. There may be some random video releases in between. I've had the odd comment here and there about I should upload some video from some of the racing that I do. Obviously, I am very far from a professional racer doing big race events. I'm mostly just hubbarting around on the local race scene. But just for fun. So I've purchased one of the DJI Action 2 cameras, which is, I've only had a quick test of this, and already, it's so much better than my admittedly quite old GoPro, which was mostly unusable. For it not to be just a shaky disaster, you had to wear the chest harness thing, which I just could never be bothered with. Quick test of this one, I mounted it just directly to the my Garmin mount with the GoPro attachment, and rode down some stairs, and it's amazingly stable. So quick test, we'll see how it goes. I've got an awesome race this Saturday, so it's one of the best sort of local events of the year. It's an XC marathon where we start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we get to race, into sunset and twilight and darkness. It's just magic. It'll, without the extra battery module, which I'm only going to run like this, we'll probably get about 50 minutes of recording, but hopefully we'll get, some good footage from the start in the first 50 minutes and see how it goes. So look out for videos titled Upper Middle Hubbard Racing. That will be this strange semi-old man, racing locally and having a bunch of fun. And who knows what it will come out like. It has been about a decade since I tried to do any on-bike footage. Right, firstly, just wanted to highlight an excellent video by GCN that I saw last week. So GCN Tech, where they were just quickly covering how important and how much it can save you by making sure you are running a excellent lubricant choice, as well as the correct maintenance for that lubricant and your riding. Because with the cost of many drivetrain components and group sets, just that little bit of focus on choosing a proven excellent lubricant as well as the right maintenance for your riding with that product, it can just make such a big difference to your cost to run and extending the lifespan of what can be some very expensive parts. So whenever, especially the biggest channels or biggest media in cycling focus on that particular side, which is obviously I'm working hard towards all the time. It's just brilliant when we get that reinforcement out and help get some accurate education going. And of course, that made a refreshing change to be able to highlight and congratulate some great information in this space, as opposed to what has still often been the case recently of correcting terrible information in the space. So thank you again, Alex and GCN. However, there was just one piece of information that I would correct from that, and that was in regards to doing the boiling or hot water flush rinsing of your wax chain. He advised that you can do that with some sort of soapy water. I very much recommend against adding any soaps or detergents to your water for that purpose. They are not designed to dissolve waxes, so they're not really going to break down any sort of paraffin wax base or really likely any other wax base in the lubricant. All they're really going to potentially do is add a soapy or detergent film after that flush rinse that may inhibit your wax or wax strip's ability to bond to clean and clear chain metal after you've done the flush clean. So just use straight boiling water. So there's potential only for, I think, downside, and not really any chance there's going to be any upside to adding any soap or detergent. So very much recommend against doing that particular tip. Now, there's potentially already by this point anti-waxers going, look how much faff wax chains are, you got to do boiling water flush rinses. No, you don't. At the end of the day, it is a optional thing. It is to help reduce the amount of stuff you bring into your wax pot post a harsh wet conditions ride. And this is true for any lubricant. If you are riding in wet conditions, that is one of the toughest lubrication challenges for a very hard working part. The water is going to be running right through your chain and bringing with it any crap that's in the water. So depending on how dirty the road or surfaces are that you're riding on, that's what's going to be trucked right in through your chain. And no matter what lubricant you're running, be it a brilliant wet lube, brilliant wax strip, or immersive wax, it is going to be transported in, and the pressures are going to press that contamination into the lubricant. There is no getting around it. And so unless you reset your chain post wet conditions ride, you are going to have a whole lot of crap running inside the chain, causing higher friction and higher wear, even if your next rides are in the sun. So it's just one of those things after any wet ride, and how much intervention you do and how often really is an individual situation and what's practical. But just know you're going to pay the piper one of two ways. You're going to pay the piper with a bit of time to do some quick, easy maintenance after a wet conditions ride to reset that contamination and get your chain back to very low friction and wear, or you're going to pay the piper with higher friction and wear. It's really that simple. There's just no free way to get around the fact that wet conditions riding is a nightmare for your chain's lubricant, and you need to do something if you want to avoid consequences on your next rides after that. And so then really it becomes a weigh up of what's easier to maintain post-wet conditions ride. Is boiling up the kettle and swishing my chain around in some boiling water, just open container, use the same swisher that I use for immersive waxing, melt off the contaminated wax, blast it dry with a hairdryer or a heat gun, re-wax? Or do you find it's easier and less faff to get out the degreaser, either removing the chain and doing some solvent or degreaser flush cleaning baths, or trying to do that on bike? I have done a lot of both, and I can tell you that personally I find faffing with solvents and degreasers to clean a wet lube chain is much more of a nightmare and a mess than the really much cleaner, easier and faster reset of boiling water flush rinses for the top immersive waxes and wax strips. Last bit on that, we do recommend drying the chain. Heat gun or hairdryer is easiest. That really blasts heat into it quite quickly and easily, especially when it's off the bike. Drying the chain on bike is more difficult because the cassette and chain rings do act as a bit of a heat sink and will pull heat out of the chain. Not too difficult to do. You do want to be a bit more careful, especially if you're using a heat gun. You don't want to be melting your chain stays, things like that. So off bike, if you've got your chain, say, in an aluminium barbecue tray, just a small aluminium barbecue tray, on the swisher, blasting it with a hairdryer or heat gun, you will find that literally in just like a minute or so, the chain is far too hot to touch with your bare fingers. And what that heat does is just evaps the water out from deep inside the chain, which is really where we want the water gone. So heat really, really helps when it comes to drying a chain. In comparison, so I'm going to do, hopefully after this holidays, I'll try to get to a proper chain maintenance video where we go through what's best practice chain maintenance for immersive wax, wax strip, and wet lubricant. But a common mistake also with a lot of solvent or degreaser maintenance of chains, either off or on bike, is people don't dry them either. And so if your chain is wet with a solvent or degreaser that you have just used to remove your wet lubricant, and so that's still wet inside the chain when you reapply your next coating of or treatment of lubricant, obviously that impacts that lubricant performance from that application, because it's mixing in with something that you are using to dissolve it out. And it's just something that's not really been covered much, and it's a common mistake with cleaning maintenance for wet lubricants, where somebody will use a degreaser on or off bike or solvent of some description. Once they've finished the flush clean, they're just reapplying their lubricant before the chain has dried. Again, heat really helps with that. I tend to recommend, and again I cover this properly when I do the video, but I would tend to mostly use something like Liquid Moly disc brake cleaner. That's a great product. It's about $10 a can here in Australia, which is about half the price of what you will pay if you purchase a bicycle brand disc brake cleaner. The disc brake cleaners are both A, very powerful, B, don't leave a film behind, and C, that usually pressurized acetone, and that just flash dries so much more easily than most degreasers will. So I just find there's a bunch of advantages for using a disc brake cleaner for your bike chain maintenance as opposed to a degreaser. But yeah, that's just a quick tip. Whichever one you're using, dry the chain before you reapply your lubricant or re-wax. All right, yeah, speaking of drying, I caught a fun product release during the week. I think it's called the It Blows. Is that what it's called? Yeah, It Blows Precision Air Blaster. So, all good. These are handy little things. I have a Nightcore one, which I've had for a while, and that's a great little unit. I don't use it for drying. I'll show you what I use it for shortly. I took some quick video with my new little action camera just on the weekend just gone, but like all fine, except I do think, and I don't mind a bike tax on some things, but sometimes I think Muc-Off take things a little far. So 120 Great British pounds is basically $250 Australian, and like that's a lot. I mean, obviously Muc-Off are not making these. This will be a just Muc-Off rebranded air duster from somebody else. I'm pretty sure it's by an Australian company, I think. My Nightcore that I have, which is a really high quality unit, like you can just feel the quality. It's been tested great quality. It's a ripper, and that cost me like $90. The one that dominates the independent testing at the moment is the Wolf Box, which is $145. So yeah, believe it or not, there's an awesome channel. If you don't watch Talk Test channel already, get onto that. What a great fun time that is. But yeah, the Wolf Box really dominated all other portable air dusters in the independent testing. So I will be pretty shocked if the Muc-Off one at basically $100 more comes anywhere close to rivaling the Wolf Box, which is apparently a pretty reputable quality unit as well. So yeah, there's that. So one that's relatively common on Instagram here that comes up is the Dustbuster, which is an Australian company. That, to me, it looks, especially in the body, very similar to the Muc-Off one. So they've got a bit of so it looks like they've switched to a more cylindrical nozzle, but the rest of that body looks very, very similar to that, which is $80. And I would love to know if the air output is also extremely similar. In which case, where are we spending the extra approximately $170? And look, not to badger Muc-Off too much, but they are one of the companies that I think tend to just really lay the marketing on a bit too thick. I mean, look at this video to launch what is an air duster. So it is a little fan powered by a battery that blows air. So this sort of high-tech video of it in a wind tunnel and showing it rather fancily blowing water off your bike has some pretty revolutionary way of drying water. I don't know. Just to me, I think a lot of the reason why perhaps you got to pay 250 Australian for this as opposed to perhaps 80 is to cover things like the production of videos like this. I think it's safe to say that a wind tunnel was not at all involved in the development of this product. It is not more aero than other air dusters, nor is it a scaled down version of the wind tunnel that they are showing you there. So I don't know what's going on there, but production value high. All right, stuck to some couple of quick vids I took on the weekend with my new little action cam. I'll show you my Nightcore, I'll show you another option, and I'll show you what I tend to use them for as opposed to drying. Get the double press right. 109 grams peak there. So pretty good. Now Muc-Off marketing theirs as like a drying hack, which is interesting. I'll show you what I tend to use them for in just a moment. Right, here's my lovely Mondraker post bit of a tune-up ride today, ready for XC race on the weekend. Not too dusty, but should be dusty enough hopefully for a mini demonstration. When I clean my bikes, I tend not to introduce water to them unless it's already been wet. So I will, I guess, to ease the load, give them a bit of a blast just to blow excess dust off, and then I will use a bike spray onto a microfiber cloth and I clean directly. As opposed to spraying stuff around, just makes it easier to not get anything cleaning onto things you don't want to get them on, such as your brake surfaces, chains, things like that. So a bit of a demonstration on, see if you can see any of the dust come off. Hopefully that comes up on video, but sometimes it can be a really dusty trail, and if you've driven to the trail to go to an event, it can be handy just to give it a quick blast both sides before you load it back into the car. However, if you are at home, then if you've got an existing electric leaf blower, they kind of put the portable dusters to shame a bit. We'll see if I can actually even get a reading on this without blowing it off the table. That's basically 1100 odd grams. And just a quick demonstration of the bike. Makes the dust cleaning before you go to the bike wash part very quick and easy. Alright, so a couple of points to wrap that for your consideration. So first, do you need that really small form factor? I mean, they are awesome little gadgets, but if you aren't traveling with your bike in your car to and from bike parks, so if it's on a bike rack or something like that, you can just obviously dust it when you get home. And I mean, if you are, for instance, fairly tight on storage space, apartment living, maybe that small little unit form factor really appeals to you, as opposed to getting a full-size leaf blower. But if you don't have those sort of restrictions, then just consider, obviously you are going to get a huge amount more performance by getting a full-size leaf blower as opposed to a little tiny portable air duster. And if you're already invested in a particular tool range, such as Ryobi or Makita or AEG or Milwaukee, whatever it may be, for around that money or less, you are likely to be able to get a unit just tool only. You don't need to purchase another battery because you're in that range, and you're going to get just a huge amount more air output, obviously, than a tiny air duster. So I mean, I use also my full-size leaf blower to dry the cars after I wash them, and it does a brilliant job at doing that. That would be a slog with the Nightcore, as awesome as that little unit is. The other part to consider is that, obviously this is going to be a rebranded existing product out on the market. It's not like Muc-Off have come out with a new motor and battery tech in this space that nobody's ever seen before, and that's why it's $250. What you are paying for is their very flashy and expensive marketing. A consideration would be, perhaps you keep the extra $80, $100, $150 in your pocket and purchase something like a Nightcore or a Wolf Box, which is likely to be either at least as good or, quite likely in the Wolf Box's case, even better than what the Muc-Off unit is. So really what you are paying that big premium for is to cover their marketing costs. So you choose if you wish to subsidize them for that. If anybody has or does purchase this, please test it on some scales and let me know how many grams of air you get, and we'll be able to rank it ourselves on the Talk Test channel air duster chart. That'll be super. Right, speaking of tools, we have in the special gift for those that somehow managed to watch the full video of the Reginald Scott correction, and to celebrate the best case of a reverse MacGyver I have ever seen in cycling, we have a custom little credit card tool. So all you need to do is, next order you place, just pop a note on the order to say that you watch the full Reginald, or you watch the full waxing correction video, and we will pop one of these in your order as a thank you to say, basically, well done. Amazing that you spent 3.5 hours watching a correction on immersive waxing information. Now, again, for those that think I'm perhaps being a bit too harsh, just remember, I mean, the fact that it took, I know I can be detailed and a bit long-winded, but still, the fact that it took 3.5 hours to cover the amount of incorrect and in many cases absolutely nonsensically illogical information around immersive waxing, it's just overall quite extraordinary. It should never needed to exist or be made, and I hope I never have to do anything like that again. So yeah, it really just was a product of the sheer volume or number of points needing to be corrected, and also the sheer magnitude of how incorrect those points were. That is how I ended up making a near 3.5 hour long video to do so. And also for those, if you're thinking that, oh, I was too harsh, again, just remember that there is in no way that I can believe that this was a genuine and honest video by Reginald with regards to what waxed life is actually like. It was just utterly ridiculous. And if you watch even the concise version, I think you will quite easily see that that is the case. No one yet has come back with any point of merit to say, hey, I think actually Reginald was correct on this point that he raised and that you're incorrect. So still, if you do believe that to be a case on any point, please raise that on that point, and we can, have a chat about it on its merit and go from there. Right, so I spent a bit over $1,000 and we got 100 of them. So I'm going to keep 10 for just some local stuff. So really, first in best dress for the 90 that we have available to go out. Just honesty system, of course, so please be honest. But if you put on the on your order note that you watch the full Reginald or the full correction, then obviously we'll trust you and pop one of these in to commemorate. We have, a tool to commemorate a tool, and a frankly extraordinary situation. I just, little finish up. I do not understand what drives some people to rail against immersive waxing to such a degree. It is simply a lubricant option that really suits some people, and the benefits for those that immersive waxing suits are just easy to understand, logical, and extremely well proven. If it isn't for you, so there are some things to take into account. Wouldn't it be great if other places, people and channels could simply present that honestly and objectively without pushing utter BS around chain lubrication and waxing into the space, which just makes it, it just muddies the waters worse for everybody, as opposed to, and it opposes, I guess, the work that myself and others do to help add clarification and the best information in the space. So it's really annoying, especially when somebody goes to the lengths that the Reginald did to just put out so much incorrect and terrible information that just makes everybody who watched it dumber and worse informed than before. So it was extraordinary, and here we go. Little commemoration for those that went on the full journey. All right, I think, lastly for today, update, just looping back to the Optimized Bike Ultrasonic Waxing Unit. So going back, I think 2 or 3 vids ago, I had a section covering Optimized Bike's specific unit for ultrasonic waxing. Normally, ultrasonics aren't great for trying to do your immersive wax because you just don't really have any ultrasonic power in wax. It's just not the right viscosity for the ultrasonic frequency, and they tend to be too lower power and also a little bit too cool, which makes the wax a bit sort of heavier viscosity again, which makes it worse. And also a lot of people tend to do things such as put the wax into a container surrounded by water, and then you have differing viscosities with the water and the wax, and you will just really have nothing going on in the wax at all. So Optimized Bike, they have a unit tuned specifically to get some ultrasonic power in your wax to try to do a better waxing than what you would do via swishing in a pot. And question number 1 was obviously like, can they actually prove that this is increasing the power? And there is something called a foil test, which can be done. It's very simple and easy to do, where you can see if there's any actual cavitation action happening in your whatever you have in your ultrasonic unit. So basically the changes that they made for their custom unit with a lower frequency, which would be more suitable to the wax's viscosity, and the higher temperature, did that do anything? And so it's great to see that finally they did actually do that test and they put it on video. So let's have a look at that.
mach das nochmal rein, damit das richtig zerfleddert. Muss nicht gut sein.
So in terms of demonstrating the ultrasonic cavitation power in a foil test in wax, perfect. So that was a no-cut edit, so he's filmed the whole thing from start to finish, and the amount of damage to the foil in the run time that he demonstrated there, mega. So in terms of proving that his ultrasonic actually has great power in wax, I've done that 100%. So that's question number one around that proven, which is excellent. Thank you, Felix, for doing that. Question number two, though, does it actually improve the wax inside your chain, or how much wax you can get in, and the distribution of friction modifiers within the wax? That's still the big unknown. Now, at the end of the day, the reason why you're shelling out the dollars to purchase that specific unit and go through the extra faff of ultrasonic waxing your chain as opposed to just doing it in the pot is to get some performance benefit from that cost and effort. And so he's making some pretty big claims around what you do get for doing that, which is a treatment lifespan extension of around 100 to 200 kilometers. And I just find that to be a really big claim. It is, at the end of the day, theoretically possible, but as yet unproven, that a good ultrasonic wax may give you an advantage over just doing it in your pot. But it's one of these situations where it's a theoretical thing, and if it's there, it's likely to be very small, such that we're going to need some pretty precise testing to prove that theoretical benefit. A 100 to 200 kilometer treatment extension is not a small claim or benefit. That is something that, if it's anywhere near that percentage increase in your wax treatment effectiveness from doing it in the ultrasonic versus in a pot, that is a massive increase over just your normal standard wax. So if that is the case, then Felix should be able to find a way to substantiate that second part of the claim. It's going to be the slightly trickier part to substantiate, and normally I would say it is something that is too small to be able to be objectively substantiated with the test equipment that most of us are going to have available. So if you were saying, look, there's going to be a small benefit, a marginal gain, something that, hey, look, if you're an avid racer or a professional racer, why not do this versus just swishing in your pot? You might get this little benefit. Similar to like race powdering your chain or race powdering your cassette. We kind of know there's potentially a little benefit to gain there from doing that. In terms of race powder, at least that benefit has been proven with some precise testing in days gone by. But in this case, I think the claims of you're looking at really a sort of up to 20% improvement in your wax treatment lifespan. It's not a small claim. So that's really up to Felix now to substantiate part two. And I guess just to visualize why I'm really raising that concern, again, your derailleur chain especially is far from liquid proof. So when you put it in the wax, the chain is also heated up. So normally you would heat up the chain with the wax. You just have it in there as the wax melts. And I mean, it's submerged in there, and then you're swishing it around. So by what mechanism does an ultrasonic get more wax into the chain. And remember that in general, we have far more wax inside the chain than the chain can actually run. That's why we have a lot of excess wax that gets pressed out and flakes off as part of the initial chain break-in. So getting sufficient wax, or having the wax penetrate to all parts of the chain, it's just not an issue. And that is why we see such extraordinary chain longevity from those who immersive wax, where we are literally seeing cases of chains lasting up to 25,000 kilometers to a genuine 0.5% wear mark. And fairly common is that sort of 10 to 15,000 kilometer lifespan. So we already know that we don't have an issue with wax getting to where it needs to go to provide awesome low friction and wear all the time. And again, also, if you're just swishing the chain normally in your wax, your friction modifier is going to be very well distributed through that. So by what mechanism is the ultrasonic achieving better friction modifier distribution within the wax? Again, theoretically possible that it is doing something, but that's something, it is believed that is going to be extremely minor and needing some extremely precise equipment to try to determine a difference. The general feedback claims by Felix and his customers that they can notice a 100 to 200 kilometer difference in treatment lifespan by doing it in the ultrasonic versus the pot. I'm just, raising some disbelief as to how that, how such a treatment longevity improvement could be possible. And I'd like to see that part 2 of this topic proven more objectively than just writer feedback. Lastly, just to address the part of the marketing around the ultrasonic is getting the wax and the modifiers into the tiny nooks and crannies and fissures and asperities in the metal surface that swishing in your pot may not achieve. Again, just remember that your chain is going to be full of wax such that it can't hold on to all of that. As soon as you start riding and the thousands to tens of thousands of PSI pressure come onto the parts of your chain, excess wax is pressed out and you're just left with a thin layer inside. And that's why you get excess coming out and being flaking off. So when that occurs, wax is going to be pressed into all of those places, and they will not be lacking either wax nor the friction modifiers in the wax. So an analogy would be to imagine, for instance, you press a block of, or you have a block of butter sitting on top of an uneven surface. You press down on that butter with a huge amount of pressure. Butter's going to get into all of the parts of the uneven surface. It's not going to have an issue getting there. So it's just not proven at this stage by what mechanism ultrasonic is achieving, if any, benefit over swishing it in the pot. Having a dedicated ultrasonic made for waxing, there was a risk that an ultrasonic might do a worse wax job than doing it in your pot, because they tend to just have no power in wax and you just have vibration, and you can actually get the friction modifiers settling down to the bottom of the wax as opposed to being well distributed through it. So it's great to see that this unit is doing some great power in wax, and that if for whichever reason ultrasonic waxing is something that you are really interested in doing, at least we can recommend go with the optimized bike unit, because that is actually proven to have power in wax, and many ultrasonic units that you might pick up elsewhere are likely not to do well at all. It's just this part 2 actually proving that it is giving you any benefit that I'd like to see some more objective testing and information on, because we're just very unclear by what mechanism it is achieving a benefit over just doing a good swishing in the pot. All right, last part of the ramble on that. The only other, and I'm not saying I've got an issue with it, but just be aware that such things like this do tend to keep driving some of the myths and misconceptions around immersive waxing. It is, for some reason, constantly thought that you need an ultrasonic cleaner to prep your chain for waxing. Obviously, you do not at all. You can just clean the factory grease or previous lubricant off your chain via any method that's actually just effective. So just solvent bars in a container. There is no difference in cleaning a chain for immersive waxing than there is cleaning it for any good drip lubricant choice. And obviously, it is also a myth and misconception out there in some areas that you need an ultrasonic to wax your chain. And obviously, that is incorrect. And so when you get people out there thinking, so much enormous faff with immersive waxing, you need an ultrasonic to clean it, you need an ultrasonic to wax it, takes so much time and so much faff. None of that is true. And whilst this is in no way Optimized Bike's fault, they can't control the fact that many people would jump on the bandwagon of incorrect information as readily as they will jump on anything. I don't know why that happens, but it's just something that happens. So you may see, if you ever, see or hear places forwarding the myth and misconceptions that you need to ultrasonic clean your chain for waxing, or you need to ultrasonic wax your chain, please just gently correct them and say that it's untrue. These are options that the most avid in the space may do to get every possible fractional marginal gain if they're really avid racers and so on. It's not the norm at all. All right, that better do. Sorry, didn't get to any test updates this week, but obviously I am ploughing through the testing as best as I can. I want to try to get some wrapped up before I start leave next Friday. So with luck, I'll probably just focus on test updates next Friday if I get to a vid then. I should have WD-40 finished, hopefully, as well as the initial results for Optimize Bike Wax, which happens to be on test as well, which is fun. And also updating on how the Silka Endurance chip is going with the dry contamination single application longevity test. Those testing names aren't a mouthful at all. All right, have a mega weekend. I can't wait for mine. It's going to be a bunch of fun. I'll try to stay upright on my awesome race. And we also have the Japanese Grand Prix. Go Yuki Tsunoda, so thrown in the deep end with this whole Red Bull fiasco, but I am so hoping that he is able to get a grip on that car, which nobody other than Verstappen has been able to for years. And also, I believe we're kicking off with some of the first World Cup rounds in the mountain bike world. So with luck, I'll try to catch some of that as well. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay low friction. Look forward to your comments and input. And yeah, chat to you soon.